everyone, Temporal here, and today we are doing how to carry on tank or how to tank diff every time. And we are going to go ahead and mostly focus this on the majority of the ladder, sort of the metal ranks, we'll call that bronze through plat range. The reason for that, of course, is as we get up into Masters, as we get up into GM, it gets very, very specific, and some of the general stuff is going to get more specific, and we're covering small aspects of it, or we start covering other things that you need to do to improve. But for the bulk of the ladder, the sort of most common things that people need to do to really take over games or to play significantly better is going to be what we cover here, sort of the big fundamental things that we can get into. And for anyone who sort of understands Overwatch, maybe long-time viewers of mine, they're really going to get that tanking, what we could go all throughout ladder on is going to come down to two big things. We could talk about engage timing. So engagement timing, that's huge, especially for main tanks, and then angles. And we're not just going to let it be this. We're not going to let it be engagement timing and angles, and that's how you tank diff every single time, though it kind of is how you tank diff every single time. We will be talking specifics, either how these individual characters exercise those things, or in some cases we might go, yes, Reinhardt really cares about engagement timing. That's absolutely one of the two things he does, and how does he go about that? Well, he goes about getting his engagement timing right, not just by doing the basics of, yes, is my whole team here? Okay, I can push, but understanding what can I do? Can I walk up, get a swing or two to force some cooldowns to get a health advantage, leave, get ourselves an energy advantage, maybe bait out the Mei wall, that sort of thing, and then push in afterwards when we have a cooldown advantage, or push in when we have an energy advantage, or push in when my teammates have properly set up and my tracer's behind them and my Ashe has Hanamura window, that sort of thing. That would all fall into engagement timing for Reinhardt, and that would be really big. And we could then talk about angles with Reinhardt, and hey, Reinhardt might have to clear his own angles if his team isn't doing it to win. He might have to really think about, does his Ashe have this angle before he goes, that sort of thing. So angles are still relevant to him. Is he walking into a kill box where the opponents have too many angles? But really not going to be like the second most important thing to win more often as Reinhardt. Once we get through engagement timing, the other really important thing for most of ladder for Reinhardt is going to be, hey, let's look to swing more often. If we can swing more often, if we can use that hammer to swing rather than throwing out fire strikes for no reason, rather than going for Leroy Jenkins style pins, rather than shield botting as some sort of firing platform for his team, understanding I want to get to opponents and I can swing as much as I can. I want to swing as much as I can without dying. Hey, that would be fantastic. So for Reinhardt, it would be like engagement timing, but a somewhat complex version of engagement timing where we're going, what do I do to trade out their resources? Do I go up and swing twice to maybe force out their bubble? Do I pretend to push, catch the Roadhog hook on my shield, back up for just a second to go ahead and recover my shield health, something like that, because that'll only take a second, and then push while Roadhog's hook still has 5 to 6 seconds left on its cooldown? Or, hey, I pretended to push, I drew an Annonade, I drew a Mei wall, I didn't get caught by it, and then I pushed, that sort of thing. Mei walls are hard, but you can bait some of that other stuff, or you can do sort of soft pushes where you go up there to swing once or twice to build that Zarya energy. Soft pushes where you pull some attention to you to allow your Ashe to take a shot, again, through that Hanamura window to see if she's able to force a TNT and then go, oh, this was big, we got the hit, this I'm going to turn into the push, as opposed to backing through your choke after going for that swing or two, so you don't get Mei-walled, punched, hacked, naded, all those wonderful things, because those won't happen to you if you've worked up a big enough advantage. So engagement timing, absolute biggest thing for Reinhardt, gonna be a theme that you'll see that as a thing for main tanks in general, but what's important to them of engagement timing is gonna go ahead and differ a bit. Angles, you'll really see that on the off tanks. If you really want to get good at tanks at both roles, you'll master both of them, but we're going to get into some more specific things here. So really, at this point, we've talked through Reinhardt. Recognize when you've actually got an advantage, put soft pressure, soft dives, similar to how Winston might do soft dives, where he sort of falls on the enemy and leaps out. Reinhardt's version of that would be, hey, I maybe step past a choke, swing at them twice, go back, or that sort of thing. And then, oh wait, we got a head in this. Do I go back and recover resources, let my team heal me back up, or do I keep going? And getting the correct judgment of that, of wait, no, I baited out. Doomfist didn't get value with this stuff. I want to keep going right now, versus Hog didn't get value. Maybe I want to heal for just a second or two, and then we'll push, that sort of thing. That plus swing more really is how you make a difference on Reinhardt, how you win when it comes to Reinhardt. We can go ahead and from here move on to, let's get an off tank. We'll do Sigma. Sigma I did in the Reddit post, but we'll do Sigma. For those who haven't seen, there is a Reddit post over on Overwatch University. I talked through these two heroes. I'll be talking through the rest of these as well, don't worry. But Sigma, well, when it comes to Sigma, there's really two things that we're looking at. Sigma is Off-Angle Simulator, the hero. This will work all through ladder. Again, most of this is focused on, hey, how to carry, how to tank diff in the metal ranks. It gets, more specific, more player specific. We do VOD reviews above that. But when it comes to Sigma, really all the way through, if you're taking off angles with Sigma, you are going to do well. You can shoot people from the side. If you're in a situation where your Orisa is shooting from main effectively and your Sigma is shooting from the side, you're going to get value. The other team is going to struggle. It is hard for them. It is hard for them to go, hey, we are over here on our soldier. We were shooting at the Orisa, who maybe had a Zen behind them, or maybe had a soldier behind them, whatever, and then we're getting shot in the side by Sigma. And if we're on soldier, maybe our Orisa was in front of our soldier, and that felt great, but now Sigma is able to peg the soldier, or able to peg the Orisa, and force Orisa to use Fortify to protect herself when she was already using her shield, which means she's now going to have a lot of downtime, because her shield was blocking your Orisa, your Hog, your soldier, whatever the case may be, while your Sigma is hitting for somewhere else. Sigma is very good at maintaining angles. He can be a little slow to get them, doesn't have any mobility, but between having his little barrier that he can throw out here, between having flux, between having 100 shield HP that recovers, being able to juggle with cover, that sort of thing, he is very good at sustaining the angles that he has, and getting those angles is everything. It is not about stacking with your Reinhardt, it is not about stacking with your Orisa, and going, oh yay, double shielded, there's just too much barrier for you to get through, because if your opponent's double shielded, you could get around those barriers, or by moving a single person like Sigma to the side, you could force one of those barriers to redeploy, and now that's one barrier versus 5 people, or one barrier versus 4 people. Because as Sigma, you are perfectly happy if a Casti, a Hanzo, someone like that comes with you. If 1 or 2 people come with you on your off-angle adventure, you are perfectly happy with that. You don't need to get away from everyone. You just don't want, the majority of the team with you on those adventures. Okay, so that's how that one works. What you're then going to move on to with Sigma, so you can get into engagement timing, don't get me wrong. If you hit a situation where, hey, maybe you have something where your Orisa has some cover, your Sigma has some cover, they both have cover, and you go, look at this, isn't this great? We can have our Orisa open this angle and shoot with her fresh shield, and when her shield breaks, she closes the angle, and then maybe we do something where, hey, our Orisa pulls some attention, that causes people to look at her, and then our Sigma opens just an instant later and start shooting after Orisa's pulled eyes to her. That can work. That's good. That would be a way to get timing better, and that will make your value a little bit better and shouldn't be scoffed at. You could also do things where, hey, everyone opens the angle simultaneously, and you just overwhelm them, and maybe there's a Halt coming in here, a Rock coming in here, a TNT coming from somewhere else. Hey, synchronized pressure, pretty good, even for Sigma, our off-angle hero, as is staggered pressure like that. Obviously not as good to just, completely 2, 3 seconds, 4 seconds before your Orisa or your Hog or your Wrecking Ball or your Ashe or whatever is going to go in. It's not good to open and just shoot at the enemy team 1v4 because you'll tax your resources. You'll end up spending health. You'll end up spending a bunch of barrier that you don't want to spend. But the truth is, it's not that tight of a timing that you have to hit with Sigma here. It's going to be a little bit forgiving. You can hit the same time, you can hit a second before, a second after, any of that stuff. It's pretty darn forgiving compared to some other heroes that we'd have to think about. Definitely compared to what Reinhardt has to get right for his timing, which has to be very precise, what cooldowns are on the board, all that stuff. Instead, the next thing you need to do to really take over games as Sigma is if you find when you're opening this off angle, when you're going, hey, let's do some work here, let's put some pressure into them with your other tank or with your soldier, Cassidy, Genji, whatever the case may be, if you're not just winning when you do this, you probably aren't hitting enough shots. And if you don't hit enough shots, this unfortunate thing will happen where people will come chase you out. If you miss too many shots, you hit him and then you miss 2-3 times after that, eventually they're going to realize what's going on and someone will come chase you out, even in the lower ranks. And that can be annoying because if they chase you out and your aim just isn't good enough, you now end up in a situation where you've sort of baited them onto the off angle and now they're shooting into your team on an off angle. That doesn't really work. Or they just ignore you and run over your Orisa or your Hog or your Zen or whatever, your main group, and you don't hit enough shots to get value. Really, Sigma shots take a little bit of practice because he does the double shot. Too many people get a little lazy and go, I don't really need to aim the second shot. I don't really need to think about it. Or, hey, the shots explode. I don't have to hit directs with them. Yes, you do. If you find that you're off angling and you're still not winning, you're probably not hitting enough shots. So work on that. Put some practice into that. Do some of your aim training. Make sure that works. Okay. So that's going to go ahead and take care of 2 heroes for us. And let's get another hero here. Who do we want to cover? Let's do Winston. Let's do Winston. Winston's a fun one. Is it possible to tank diff with pirate ship? Not really. No, not really. So when it comes to Winston, we're looking at, and I will catch up on you guys in chat in just a bit here. I'm not ignoring you. When it comes to Winston, what you're looking at is, I'm going to give him 3 things. So the big thing for Winston is you want to cleave squishies. It's okay if you're zapping multiple tanks, but you really want your cleave to include squishies. So if you're in a situation like, let's say this right here, where you're getting Reinhardt plus Hanzo plus Ana, golden. You were happy. You were having a wonderful time. Winston puts good pressure on squishies. Winston puts okay pressure if he's like diving and fighting an Ana, but he's not going to take her down particularly quickly. He puts good pressure if he's diving and pushing out a Hanzo that's got an off angle, but he's not going to take Hanzo down particularly quickly. He can do okay damage if he's fighting like Reinhardt plus Diva, but you know, it's pretty easy for Ana, Bap, whoever to keep up with that. So really, what Winston wants is he wants to cleave multiple targets, and he wants to make sure that he's got at least one squishy in those multiple targets that he's dealing with. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, and his cleave is deeper. It reaches further than Reinhardt's hammer does. It's very good for that. It's going to build ult charge really fast. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the enemy team that lets them spend a lot more than they'd like. We're talking Ananades. We're talking Lamps. We're talking everyone just generically being weak, even if they are healing themselves. So it's really easy for even your teammates who you feel like only hit 1 shot in 6 to go ahead and finish something off there. That is the first step to carrying as Winston. The next thing that you're going to run into for Winston, don't die. Not dying is good advice in general, but it's especially applicable to Winston. You need to get cleave on multiple targets as frequently as you can without dying. And that's tough because it might mean you have to jump above them and then zap them from high ground and then have jump to leave. It might mean you've got to synergize with your Zarya. It might mean you need to go, hey, I'm going to jump into them, but I'm only going to jump into them after I see they've used a cooldown or 2. It might mean, hey, I'm going to let the Reinhardt wander up and now I'm going to jump in here and get damage on their Zen Ana Hanzo, but they're going to force me out real quick. So what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? But not dying on Winston is really critical because it's kind of hard to do. Like, compared to Wrecking Ball more consistently faster, can get out of there. Yes, one has leap, one has tether, but Wrecking Ball has faster normal speed by going into ball form. Wrecking Ball has better mobility, that sort of thing. Reinhardt, has that nice shield. Orisa doesn't have to walk in until she's ahead in the first place. Winston has no poke phase. He's got to go in, but he's got to not die when he goes in and get lots of cleave. I'm saying get lots of cleave. That does not mean that there aren't situations where you're going to go push out that Hanzo who's on high ground, annoying, that sort of thing. But if you're really caring, if you're really taking over the game, you're going to have to get cleave on 2-3 squishies at a time, or, 2 tanks and a squishy, whatever the case may be there. So that's going to be it. And then we get to the third thing on Winston. And Winston's going to get 3. For most of these, I'm doing 2. But it was that important to say don't die on Winston. What we run into is all that cleave damage that we're doing is opening up primals. Primals are amazing. I think of primal as having 3 tiers or 4 tiers. Tier 4 would just be fail. Tier 4, you just fail. You just use it as extra health. You use it to stall point and feed the other team a bunch of ult charge. We don't like that. Forget Tier 4. Tier 4 is bad. Tier 3, this is the first real primal. And here, you can kidnap people. Even if you have terrible Winston mechanics, you can go, hey, I'm going to go ahead and send their Reinhardt away so my team can get to the backline more easily. Or I'm going to go ahead and, even with terrible primal mechanics, I'm going to go ahead and bring their Moira in, jump on her, she fades, jump on her again, bring her back to your team so your team can take her down. It's a valid primal. It's not amazing. You're still counting on your team to do too much work there, to be perfectly honest, because you're being like, hey, I'm bringing you this, now you guys come take it out. But even if you aren't hitting good direct land on them damage, even if you're not great at aiming the swings, you can probably get a squishy like a Moira, like a Brig, like a Casti, some sort of squishy over to your team for your team to take care of. It's a valid primal, not a terribly hard one, not one you're going to be really tank dipping with. But it's the first level of primal. Then, however, we get into real primals. I'm going to call these 2 hits. And this would be, hey, you can eliminate people by yourself. You can jump on a backline pair. For example, you could jump on a, let's get the right colors for them. Let's get an Anna plus Moira. We'll do that. We had that. We'll go like this. You could jump on this, and you can go, hey, jump on them, use your bubble, get out the sleep dart, whatever you got to do here, then go into your primal. And then with your primal, you're going to go, hey, already on top of you, because we already jumped in on you with our normal jump, go ahead and hit this away with the primal, jump and land on it again, and as it's being knocked up and away by the landing, hit it so that you get both the landing damage and the hit damage. You have to hit them before they get knocked too far away from your landing damage, so you're not ticking down too much of your primal time catching back up on them, and you can't hit them before you land too early before you land and send them up and away, because you'll send them pretty fast before you get your landing damage and miss out on that. So you got to get that right to get your 2 hits. If you're doing that, you'll pretty quickly, not quickly, but you can, with a little bit of practice, get to a point where, including your jump in and zap a little bit in the first place, you'll pretty reliably be able to take out both supports. I know that's hard to believe. No, they'll chain heal each other, things like that. Yeah, Moira, come on, fade after the Anna. That was nice. I'm now going to hit you away again and hit her away, and then I'm going to do it again, and you're not going to be able to keep her up. We're going to get her. We'll probably then have 3 jump hits left in our primal at the end of that, and then, yeah, maybe she's alive without fade, without orb at the very end of your primal, and you finish her off with a little bit of left click. I don't care if you're counting a little bit before and a little bit the end of the primal. You can get 2 with these 2-hit primals. And then obviously the elite version of primal would be the 3 hits. You guys are not going to be doing these in the metal ranks, but this would be the, hey, you're jumping on them, you're going to go ahead and get both your, I'm landing on this Moira, so I'm jumping into this Moira, I'm hitting this Moira, but I'm hitting them the instant before I've landed so that I get the hit on them, I land, and then as they're being knocked back by both of those things, I'm actually have done it with such timing that I'm also going into my second swing, because it's kind of like a Reinhardt swing where he goes back and forth, going into my second swing, so I'm getting hit damage, land damage, hit damage again, and the Moira's taking 3 hits. And that'll decrease the TTK, the time to kill, on the squishies that you're going after by quite a bit. You do not need this. You cannot have this. This is what you're looking for. when you're looking. I mean, it would be great if you have this, don't get me wrong, but this 2-hit is what you're looking for. You'll charge up a ton of privals if you're playing for maximum cleave damage, if you're playing to bully the squishies, and you'll just go wild with this. Just don't die a lot, because you can feed on Winston and you can easily lose your extra team fights on Winston. It's much easier to do than on Reinhardt, than on Orisa, that sort of thing. Okay. From there, that covers Winston quite well. Let's go ahead and get another off-tank in here. Who do we want to cover as another off-tank? Let's go ahead and talk about Roadhog. Roadhog's a hero. Roadhog's pretty great. Angles. Just like Sigma, you want angles. You are not playing Roadhog if you are standing with your team, standing with your Orisa, standing with your Reinhardt, and you're shooting at the other team and going, I do lots of shield break, and if they make a mistake, I'll hook them. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Yeah, you're not playing Roadhog if you're doing that. I'm sorry. Roadhog is an amazing kit for sustaining himself on off angles. The reason that Take a Breather works how it does, where it gives him half of his health back, it gives 50% of his life, heals him for 300. It also gives him 50% damage reduction, and what really makes it work is he can move while doing this. It doesn't root him. He can move while doing this. This is a tool for him to kite back from an aggressive angle that he took after he pulls a lot of attention to him with his hook, with some right-click sniping, that sort of thing. So he is very much an angle-based character. If you take angles, you're going to do quite well with him. Now, he does, and some people might make an argument that, oh, he's kind of close to a main tank for an off tank. I know we could get into the whole main tank off tank distinction, but he does care about timing a little bit more than Sigma does, for example, because he will get quite a bit more value if he lets his team distract for him for a moment. So he lets Orisa open and start shooting for an instant, and then he opens the angle on the side and hits the hook, because eyes turning away from him will make that very spiky, very powerful hook more likely to land. And that is quite good, given that it is a one-shot that we are talking about, at least if it's on squishies. So he cares a little bit more about timing, but the reality is, even if he goes first, even if he pulls a bunch of attention to him, that's still going to open up for follow-up for, it's not just his Orisa, his Sigma, or his Reinhardt, whatever. There's going to be a team playing generally in a similar direction to that other tank, and that team is going to have a lot of power because there's 3 or 4 of them shooting from that direction, and Hog can get out alive. So this off-angle play is really, really important for Roadhog, and Roadhog is one of the strongest heroes for taking off angles. Roadhog can go through a cave, and if he runs into a casty, he doesn't care. If he runs into a Sigma, he beats them. If he runs into a Tracer while going through a cave, Tracer doesn't have enough room to blink around on a lot of flank routes. Like, Hog is strong when it comes to going and taking off angles. It's just once he's done his thing explosively on his off angle, he generally doesn't get to do too much work there. So angles and timing are actually both pretty darn important to Roadhog. And then the last thing that's going to be important for Roadhog is you gotta be threatening with those right clicks. If your Hog's power scale looks like when I have hook, I'm this powerful, and when I don't have hook, I'm this powerful, you got problems. Because you're not going to have your hook very often. You're going to use your hook. It's going to be on cooldown for 7 seconds. We don't like that. We don't want to go, hey, use my hook immediately after retreat, even if the enemy isn't paying attention to me, and then retake it later and maybe 10 seconds later go for another hook. No, you got to have some second power level between the two that's either here or even like here, which is, hey, I'm a right-click sniper. My right click threatens people. I can hit that meaty one shot on people at the perfect range. I can play to be close to that perfect range with cover to go ahead and still threaten lethal even without your hook there. Being able to hit those shots, being able to threaten those shots will do a lot to make a team, instead of just going, oh my goodness, crap your pants scary for the moment that the Hog is there and shows up with his hook, and then, oh, we can ignore him, to go, oh shoot, this is a hero, they are annoying, they can put out some consistent pressure, kind of similar to Sigma over here. Not as powerful as Sigma outside the hook, but still, hey, that's consistent, that's scary, and that will force them to more regularly actually chase the Hog out after they've gotten their hook, whether they hit it or not, which is good because it allows the rest of his team to do a lot of work. Obviously, if you're missing all your hooks on Hog, you're not going to carry on Hog. I don't really think that one needs to be explained. That one people get and sort of just know. Okay, so next we're going to go and chat. Don't worry, I will catch up on you guys pretty darn soon here. We're halfway through. So we could move into, who do we want to do? We just did Roadhog. We can do a main tech next. We can do ball. Okay. Hit a lot. You need to hit a lot with Wrecking Ball. So you need roll throughs and pile drives. Your pew 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 blasters, even from an angle, they'll be good, but they're not distracting enough for you to carry games. You can go, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and take an angle. Maybe your team is over here. Your team that magically has 4 tanks on it. Maybe your team is over here and their enemy team is where the Symmetra is. And you go, hey, it's cool. I've got an angle behind her. I'll distract her with some pew, 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 and make her turn and shoot at me. And that'll allow my team to shoot at her. That's not enough. Like, that's a good way to not get destroyed when your grappling claw is on cooldown, when the opponents have swapped into Brig, Cassidy, May, Roadhog. That's a good, Anna. Like, that's a good way to not get blown up when they've just loaded up on a ton of things to try to stun you, but you're not really carrying at that point, and it's going to be very hard to take over and carry the game at that point. You could swap heroes, or you could make sure that you hit them specifically when they're not looking at you. Because even with all those stuns, if they don't stun you on the way in, you'll probably actually do okay. They might still get you with a stun, but you've got pretty good chances of getting out. But the key is, if you want to really make a difference, if you really want to frustrate that enemy team, you really want that enemy team to type tank diff in chat, for example, it's really going to be about, you have to hit them hard, and you have to hit them a lot. Yes, ideally, you would like good timing of I'm hitting them when my team is ready to push, or I'm hitting them at a time that my team needs to rotate across a dangerous opening, hit a tough part of a rotation, and my distraction helps my team go through. Ideally, you're going to hit with that good timing. And that's fine. And, yes, you're also going to take an angle. Wrecking Ball does care more about taking an angle than, Reinhardt and Winston do, for example, if we're comparing him to some of the other main tanks there. But what we're really looking at is you need to be getting hits. Yes, you can absolutely instead go, hey, I need to duel Widowmaker, I need to duel Lahanzo, and you can go win those to get carries as well. But most of the time when it comes to carrying, it is going to be about hitting a lot of people to just do a ton of damage to their team, charge up a bunch of minefields like that. You will get minefield really fast if you're doing roll-throughs or pile drives on a lot of people quite frequently, and you're not getting punished for it. You're not taking 400, 500 damage in exchange for getting those. And then the second piece to carrying on him is going to be, once you start doing that, they will adjust. They will throw a ton of pressure. You will start seeing ball counters come out. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to do what I just talked about, which is, hey, they have a bunch of ball counters on the field. I guess I can live Sim up there. She's annoying with her things for it. Let's not do you, actually. You're a little too much. Let's go ahead and get ourselves... Give me just 1 or 2 more ball counters here. You could go like this. You could go like this. You start seeing something like this, you could swap, or you can go, I'm going to let my team take a little bit of attention, and I'm going to, have done my roll through, whatever. They might know I'm over here. I'm intentionally going to swap lanes in a way that they can't see, and now I'm going to hit the roll through again from a direction that they're not looking and that they don't expect me to come from. Because if you do that, you can still continue to get a lot of hits. And because even though they have all these stuns, you're not getting pre-slept start if they're not pre-looking. You're not getting hooked if they're not pre-looking. You do not, as Wrecking Ball, roll at a team that has stuns when the people that can stun you, or someone who could do a ton of chip like Soldier, are pre-looking at you. You need to come at them and get your hits. Even a hit into the team like this is perfectly doable, and you can carry tilting this team hard because they've loaded up on ball counters by going, hey, I'm going through here when they, when they're not looking at me because I recognized I needed to change lanes, that sort of thing, in a way that they couldn't see. I probably wouldn't actually do it into this. This is probably too much. The Sim turrets plus the May is probably too much slowdown, but we could still give it something like a Casty. If I find that, where are you, McCree? Cowboy? Something like this. It's doable. It's perfectly doable. I know it doesn't look it, but it's perfectly doable to carry with ball into this composition. Okay. So that's going to take care of Wrecking Ball. who, again, does care a bit about angles, does care a bit about timing, but is really going for, I'm going to get a lot of hits, and I'm not going to get stunned on the way, because you will start getting into situations where you then can't hit them soon enough again, even if you do get out alive, or your team has to panic too hard to try to save you type thing. So here we'll move on to, let's do an off tank. Let's do Zarya. Zarya is another fun one. Zarya is one who we are going to talk about 3 things for, and that is going to be, you have to always be high energy. It's not an option. You have to be high energy as Zarya. So you really got to be in comms and go, yeah, let's go, guys. Yeah, we're going to get them. Yeah. And you really got to target call loudly and make plans and keep it. No, that's the wrong type of energy. Okay. So when it comes to Zarya, you've really got to always be high energy. With 1 bubble cycle, so that means 2 bubbles, your personal and your projected, you have to be able to get up to 60 energy basically every time. You have to be able to do that to carry on energy. To carry on Zarya. If you cannot with 1 bubble cycle very regularly, be it 60 plus energy, it's not going to work for you. Either you need to work on your bubbles, or you're trying to play it into like double sniper, and she's just not going to work very well at all into that, because bubbling widow headshots isn't really a thing. So you have to be high energy. The way you get high energy is by going, hey, I have very reliable bubbles. So I'm going to bully the opponents myself, and as I bully them, they want to shoot at me, and then I personal bubble when they're already shooting at me type thing. Or, hey, my Doomfist is going in. They have to shoot at my Doomfist. If they don't, he's going to get kills, so he gets a bubble. Same thing with a Reaper. Or I'm bubbling my Reinhardt as he's starting his swing. Not as he's walking in and is still 3 meters away. Not as he's leaving. Not, when he's already 2 swings in and is just about to start to back out. But like, hey, I'm bubbling him as he starts swinging. I'm bubbling my Doomfist as he's slamming in. I'm bubbling my Anna as the opposing Doomfist slams into her, that sort of thing. Like, you have to consistently do that to be able to carry on Zarya. The next thing that you're going to run into is, if you're playing high energy, you're going to get a lot of grabs, and you got to use those grabs. You can't be like, oh, I got to wait for the perfect 4-person grab. I got to be terrified that this div is going to eat it. No, you're going to get a lot of grabs. You should have a grab like almost all the time on a high energy Zarya, and it does a lot of work. So you just go, hey, that's cool. We're here. We're going to throw out these grabs. We're not going to sit on this. These are candy. We're not going to trick ourselves into thinking this is a more valuable ult than it is, that we have to win every single time we use it, and a single failed grab is, oh my goodness, the end of the world. This is such a valuable ult. Nah, it's not that ult anymore. Grab has been made worse. It's been shrunk. It's not this, oh my goodness, one of the top ults in the game anymore. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but you need to not hold on to it super dearly and wait for that grab. You need to just go, hey, this is candy. I'm going to throw out the grabs. You can see good Zaryas over time have been, I'm going to grab at the beginning of the fight, and maybe I'm going to grab again at the end of the fight. And it was the same team fight. You need to grab a lot as Zarya. Now, you don't have to be grabbing every single team fight, but it should be close. And then the last thing that we'll get into with Zarya is an off tank, but Zarya does not control angles as well as Sigma, Hog, or even D.Va does. So what Zarya ends up having to do is Zarya needs to decrease the incoming damage to her team by shooting at off angles. Yes, she'll take a little bit of an off angle herself. Maybe she has a Reinhardt going like this. She off angles a little bit herself. But what she needs to recognize is, just like she'd like to off angle her little bit herself to do some damage to the other team, if the other team has someone doing any level of off-angling, she wants to, if they're in range, it is better to put the beam on the Torb or the Pharah than it is to put the beam on the Hog, who's making up sort of the core of their team there. If someone starts to off-angle a little bit, you have to check them before they're able to get more aggressive. So look for targets that aren't the opposing Reinhardt, that aren't the opposing Sigma, that aren't the opposing Roadhog. Look for targets that are getting just a little bit more aggressive by taking a little bit of an angle, just like Zarya herself would take a little bit of angle. She can really shut down a lot of plays just with good hit scan damage pressure, which is what she has. Good high damage, hit scan, damage pressure, very consistent, very good at going, no, you're not making this play Pharah, you're immediately missing 80 health. You're not making this play Reaper, you're immediately missing 100 health. Whatever the case may be there. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to our next hero. And we just did an off tank, so we'll do our last main tank, and that's going to be Orisa. And what we're looking at with Orisa is you do have to be able to kill squishies. You have to kill squishies, very similar to what we talked about at the very end with Zarya here, where you want to shoot at those off-angle targets. Don't get me wrong, you'll put pressure on a Reinhardt, put pressure on Orisa, put pressure on a Sigma, put pressure on a Hog who's doing take a breather. You'll put pressure on those things if they're directly in front of you, that's fine. But as soon as something more interesting shows up, like a Hanzo over here, you do need to flick over and put damage on this. But more specifically than flicking over and putting damage on this, when you see someone get even a little bit too far from cover, you have to trust yourself that you can throw this halt out here, throw this halt out here, and start shooting at them, shoot all of your shots. They're going to retreat back to the cover that you predicted on them. You're going to have hit some shots on that. You're going to click your halt to pull them back in, and you're going to finish them off. If you want to carry on Zarya, you have to be confident enough that you can pre-fire halts and just 200 to 0 squishies. That's a thing that you have to do. You have to effectively go, I'm going to get picks anytime DPS get too greedy. You should also, even if they don't get too greedy, just put a little pressure on people that take angles to make them either close their angle or to make them go behind their Reinhardt, Orisa, whatever, in order to give yourself more uptime, because Orisa is a bit uptime challenged. Speaking of uptime challenged, that's actually the other thing that you need to do on Orisa. You need to not demand a lot of resources in the poke phase. Orisa, a lot of people are like, oh, Orisa, she's a main tank. She's supposed to stand in front of her team, and because she's standing in front of her team, she can shoot. No, Orisa can shoot when she has a barrier down, or if she gets greedy, she can use her fortify on top of that, if she really gets greedy. And then she can shoot while her fortify is good. Orisa cannot shoot if enemies are looking at her, and her barrier isn't down, and neither is her fortify being used. That's not an option for her. She can shoot without her barrier down if no one's looking at her, and I recommend she does that, by the way. That'll increase her uptime. But if people are looking at her, shooting at her, she cannot go, oh, I'm a tank, I have 400 health, I have a bunch of armor, I can shoot at them and my healers will heal me through it. No, they won't. They won't. You have to close the angle, or you have to decide that it's worth spending fortify. You do not, as Orisa, get to go, it's okay, my team will heal me through this. Orisa is not Reinhardt. You do not get to go, hey, I'm spending health to trade out damage to the enemy team in the poke phase. That is not something she gets to do, except when she's fortifying. You'll end up causing your BAP or your Ana or whoever to pay too much attention to you. If your BAP or your Ana are paying too much attention to you, they're not taking good enough offensive shots. If your Mercy is coming over to pay attention to you, she's given up enabling your aggressive Hanzo, your aggressive Pharah, that sort of thing. She does not get to be a resource sponge in the poke phase. And the sooner you learn that, even though you might go, oh, but I'm not doing as much because I'm not shooting as much, you are. You're freeing your team up to, A, you're not dying, but you're freeing your team up to be allowed to play the game. You're not being a resource pit, and not being a resource pit is important. That said, yes, you can brawl with people when your fortify is up, and you can expect to get healed during that. It doesn't take very much healing to keep you up while fortify is up, but also they have to do it anyways. It's the right play. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our last tank, and she is a complicated tank, and that is D.Va. D.Va. So you'll notice we talked a lot about the power of off angles. And yeah, D.Va would like to go rest on an off angle, but we're going to start with on D.Va is sort of the basic thing of please stop frontlining and feeding with D.Va. If you play D.Va like Reinhardt, or like this bad Orisa, the one who's just standing there taking too much damage, you're not going to have a good time. People get tricked into believing that D.Va's this brawly frontliner because she's got a big health pool, she's got armor, she's a short-range hero, her left click does a lot of damage if you're right in people's face, but does very little damage if you've got any distance, so surely she's a close-range hero. No, she's a dive hero. What does dive mean? Mobility plus close range. Okay. What does that mean? Well, mobility plus close range heroes are generally weaker than less mobility short range heroes, like Reinhardt and Zarya. In other words, Reinhardt and Zarya are stronger than D.Va at close range. Stop trying to use D.Va as a frontline tank. People get very bad reinforcement training for this because they go, she's a tank. Surely she can frontline. Surely she can be up against the opponents. No, I don't even want to put her in the front line against Roadhog. Like, don't make me do it. D.Va does not want to live in front of her team like that. She might be sort of with her team if she's also got a Reinhardt, though she'd still prefer an off angle. But you are not going to have a good time on D.Va. You are actively losing your team games if you're trying to frontline on D.Va in a non-divey manner. And divey manners are very short windows, bursty, that sort of thing. So, hey, don't feed on D.Va. That's really going to be important. Again, we're aiming this more at the metal ranks. GM and Masters players are just going to, and even Diamond players are just going to have more specific things that they'll work on, though still engagement, timing, and angles are going to be a lot of it. So don't feed. That's going to be your first step on her. But then how do you actually carry? How do you actually take over games as D.Va? Well, there's two real ways you actually take over games as D.Va. The two ways that you take over games are you don't let the opponents activate their win conditions ever. So you look into a fight and you constantly predict how they're going to try to beat you. And that comes in two forms. There's two real things you're looking to shut down with D.Va. One of which is going to be, hey, do they have some big scary ult that we need to be aware of? They do? Huh. I'm going to delay when they can get that ult off. Not, they're never, ever, ever going to be able to use a Dragon Strike or a Blizzard or a Grav against us, but I'm going to delay when they can get that off. I'm going to make the first 4 seconds or so of the fight being real, very, very uncomfortable for them to try to Grav during. Very, very uncomfortable for them to try to Dragon Strike during, for them to Blizzard during, that sort of thing. So that would be like the first thing. She's looking for, how can I play this defensive barrier that just does not let them get their winning ult? Or is the biggest threat not an ult, but actually their ability to go, hey, we're playing against this team. They're playing Junkrat plus, Soldier plus, let me get them a Reinhardt real quick. They're playing like this. The Soldier's going to be an issue. So you let your team engage, you let your team do what it's going to do, and you're head on a swivel as you're heading into the fight, thinking, hey, someone showing up on an off angle, maybe that's a Soldier, maybe that's a Pharah. Again, you're thinking about this going into the fight. Is there an ult that you need to be super concerned about? Or is there, and that ult might be Junkrat Tyre, for example. She has answers to that. They're just not DM. So I'm not going to let them get value out of that for the first 4 or so seconds of the fight. Or if someone shows up on an off angle because they have a Widow, they have a Soldier, they have whatever the case may be, I'm going to, as our team engages, I'm going to block that out. And again, I'm looking to get about 4 seconds of them not getting value. And obviously you can do a better version of this. You can fly at them, you can DM, you can drop. With your next boosters, you can go back up and block them out for another 2 to 3 seconds and then drop again. And you can sort of stagger it like that to try to buy your team a little bit more time. But what you're trying to do is you are going, hey, I am not going to let the opponents just win fights through good macro, through taking angles, through using ults, that sort of thing. I am not going to let them do that. I am going to buy my team more time to figure something out, to piece together the breadcrumbs and find some way to win. And you might be going, but Temporal, that's not carrying. I'm still relying on my team. Can't help you. Can't help you. There is another way to carry on D.Va, and I'm about to get to it, but this wins you a lot of games on D.Va. This is how you win on D.Va. You do not let the enemies activate their win conditions. You go, hey, you're not going to be allowed to play the game. You're not going to be able to do what should be an easy win for you, and sometimes that catches the other team off guard and lets your team just run them over, because it does things like, hey, they expected to be able to just win with Visor this fight, so they're not using Tire, they're not using Shatter, they're not using Beat, and you just beat them sort of thing, whereas your team was perfectly happy to use its things. That's the first thing. The second thing you get into with D.Va is you do have to actually get decently good aim with D.Va. Most people get like, it's weird, but they get this thing where like, hey, how do I want to put this? They get into this place where it's like, hey, she has such high spread, so it's fine. When you booster on someone that has shown any sort of opening, you're not expected to just be able to booster on a full health Soldier, Hanzo, Anna, whatever, and just beat them all the time. You do need some opening. Either you show up on them when they're not looking on you. They're pre-discorded orbed. They've been hit by a shot already. They already used their nade. They already used their healing station. You need some sort of opening, but when those openings happen, you do have to be able to 100 to 0 them and beat them. And That does mean getting your aim for your SR to the level that you can consistently do that. And then looking for those openings mid-fight. It might be, hey, my first boosters is to block out their win condition. My second boosters is to take them out. Or, oh, we're in the poke phase and I see that this happened. And, oh, I see that my Hanzo landed a shot. I see that my Ana landed a purple. I see that that Ana self-naded. I see that that BAP used shift. Now I'm willing to go in there and just beat them. Okay. And that's really going to do it. That is the tanks. That is how you carry on them. That is how you get those tank differences, stack those wins up. Yes, again, we can get more specific. I'm repeating myself if I say that again, so I won't. But that is kind of generally for the medal ranks what you're looking to do to just win lots and lots of games on your tanks. If people have questions, throw them up in chat now. I'm going to go ahead and play some catch up on chat. Let's see what we've got. How to throw as a tank, temporal educational video. That could be a fun one. Maybe we need to do that. We've done a couple meme videos, like our Hanzo one. I mean, our Hanzo one was totally real. Our Hanzo Needs Buff video was totally real. But maybe that would be a good one. Getting tank diffed feels bad? Yeah, it does. And if you always do this, you'll be doing the tank diffing, or there will be no tank diffing because both tanks are playing great. Who knows? Who knows? Play better. There you go. Take an angle. You'll get weird looks when you do it as Sig and Gold. You're not wrong, Semitic. Like, yes, in the metal ranks, even in the not metal ranks, Sigmas will get weird looks when they take off angles, as will Roadhogs, as will Orisas when they do it, because they can do it too. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, some weird looks are going to happen. Who cares? Win your games. If you're not winning your games when you're doing it, hit your shots too. You'll win the games. Speaking of non-metal ranked tanks, unpopular opinion, I don't think Flats is that great of a tank player. We'd have to look at some tape, Law. I'm not going to comment on that right now. Those two things are very important for the high ground charge. Oh, angles and timing. Content, nom nom nom. You're welcome, Adam. You're welcome. I know I didn't get anything out this morning, but we got this now. You can't just get on high ground without any angles, press shift, and hope to hit something? I see. I think Temporal needs to demonstrate these things in game. It would take way too long to set them up. That's like, yes, I agree. This would be better content if I went and got video examples of everything that I'm talking about here. It would also take 10 times as long. And, you know, we're going for a little bit of let's go for higher volume content rather than excellently edited content in terms of our approach. Maybe that's the wrong approach, but that's how we're doing it. Alg title? I don't know what you mean. Taxity there. That's a really good way to explain that. Ryan doing soft dives, it makes sense. Great. Yeah, Ryan, soft dives I think is the right way to explain what Ryan is doing if you understand how Winston, for example, does soft dives. But I'm glad that made sense to you, Ammon. You must stack all 6 in a row. Please don't. Please don't. It's possible to tank diff with a pirate ship. I said no to that already. I'm going to stick to that. Maybe if your Sigma or your Orisa is hitting some awesome holts, maybe. Adventures. Next time someone asks me why I'm flanking, I'm going to tell them I'm on an adventure. There you go. You're off on your adventure. It's great. And you should invite someone to come along with you. If you're on Sigma, Hog, just like invite Cassidy to come along with you, Zen to come along with you, Widow to come along with you. It'll be great. 600-pound stealth gorilla. 600-pound stealth gorilla is awesome, but that's a very duelist-heavy playstyle. 600-pound stealth gorilla is much more the I'm going to sneak around to your backline, I'm going to challenge your backline, I'm going to fight you. That won't charge you up the maximum number of primals. That won't do a ton of cleave damage to the other team. That's more of a style swap that you go into when the front line is too brawly, too hard, and you don't have the Ana, the Zarya, the support that you might need to go, hey, let me hit massive cleaves. That's instead I'm just going to outduel their Ana, their Zen every time and go win, which you can absolutely do, and you can carry like that, but that would not be the preferred playstyle for maximum carry, I'd say. I thought you were just supposed to roll straight through choke and sit on point and then flame your team for not moving in. I think that's right, Levy. I think that's how you play Wrecking Ball. That's not how you play Wrecking Ball. Zarya is the OG carry tank pick. She is, because Well, she doesn't shut things down as well as Diva does. She still can shut one thing down pretty well. She can profit from shutting that one thing down. You know, someone got hooked and she bubbles them, for example. Someone is getting pinned and she bubbles them, and she puts out more offensive pressure than the Diva does. And then since the enemy team isn't very good at abusing off angles for much of ladder, and Zarya's weakness as an off tank is that she doesn't answer off angles as well as Diva does, or doesn't hold them as well as Sigma does, or doesn't do as much from them as Hog does. That's Zarya's weakness as a tank, but it's taken quite a while for ladder to figure out how good angles are. So yeah, Zarya is the OG carry tank. Yeah, Bush can't play Zarya? I don't know what that means. So I feel so hard to carry on past like 3k for me. The character is so weak and gets destroyed by everything. How do you get value and not get melted on Zarya? Okay, so when metas are particularly poke heavy, Zarya isn't going to be amazing. Ladder is pretty poke heavy right now, but she's still usable. But what that's going to come down to is you're going to have to tell me a little bit more about about what you're running into. Are you struggling to get energy, Gen Z main? Are you struggling to get damage done? Are you struggling because, hey, you can't finish people off? I need to know a little bit more about what you're struggling with specifically. And a VOD review is a great way to do that. People can join my Discord in the description below to get those, for example. I do charge. I do this professionally, but you can join the Discord. You can also just hang out in the community, see our server scrims. Those are fun. We'll be hosting one of those soon. Feel free to join. But when it comes to Zarya getting her past 3k, it's going to depend. I mean, you look at her and it can be a case of you need to more consistently get energy off your first bubble cycle. It can be a case of after your first bubble cycle, your bubbles need to save people more often. It can be a case of you need to understand exactly how much of a bully you can be and bully harder when you have your bubble and bully less hard when you don't have your personal bubble. It could be a number of things. It really could. It could be, you know, you're picking Zarya when your teammate's picking Diva or Sigma, and you really should be picking Orisa or Hog or Sigma yourself, or you get the idea. Time has not treated Zarya well in Overwatch. No, it is not. She has not needed all of the nerfs that she has gotten. Energy decay rate keeps getting faster and faster. Her bubble only gets her 40 instead of 50 energy. Like, time has not treated Zarya particularly well. I know. They were worried, oh, Goat's too powerful. She's the damage source. She's getting to play a DPS role. The issue must be that she's doing too much damage. No, the issue was always that sustain was too high. Okay. Turns out having a short mobility cooldown to answer angles is better. It is. It is. Diva's the most broken tank in the hands of a pro. Definitely up there. Diva's a good answer. Wrecking Ball's a good answer for the most broken tank, but Diva's really, really good. Pros can play the game faster than most people can, so, you know, being able to stop the enemy for activating their win condition for 3 to 4 seconds is an eternity in professional play. It's less good in, say, Silver, where it might take us fight 20 seconds to resolve before anyone dies on either side, but it is still really, really good. And pros obviously get very, very good at using her DM, get very good at using her DM from angles that the opponents don't see, get very good at not feeding on her, you know, going, hey, I have this bulk. If I'm spending this bulk, I'm getting something done. I'm happy to spend this bulk to block out a visor, happy to spend this bulk to protect my teammate body block a little bit, that sort of thing. Oh, I spent 400 HP to trade out their Zen. That's perfectly fine. But if I was wrong, I was going to lose my mech, and that's a lot of ult charge that I just gave them and didn't get their Zen, that sort of thing. When you tilted Reinhardt, sorry, it switched off. Well, this video could have been 30 seconds. It could have. It could have been 30 seconds, and it could have been get your engagement timing right, use angles well. That could have been the 30-second version of this video. Glad you're enjoying it, Kyler. So a metal rank tank, looking how to tank, meet Ryan. If Ryan is taken, meet Zarya. If she's taken, go back to Ryan. No, don't do that, especially not right now. They're not in great places, Ryan and Zarya, right now. What do you mean Sigma's not supposed to stand in front of the team and shield their whole enemy team? He's a tank, Temporal. Yeah, I know. You're being sarcastic, Gen Z, man. only had some friends where you could get to stage some of these situations for you. Yeah, that'd be great. That would be great, wouldn't it? Editing videos is time consuming and boring. I hear you, Levy. I hear. It does put up some nice quality finish, though. Got it. Trump in 2016 Republican primary labeled Jeb Bush as low energy, so he was called low energy Bush. I remember that now. Yes, you're absolutely right. I just wasn't making the connection to my pointing out the high energy Zarya as you gotta be to carry. Thank you. Thank you. Struggling to get damage without getting melted. This is Zarya. Either I feel useless on main or take off angles and get forced out too easily. Why are you getting forced out that easily? You don't get forced out of off angles particularly easily as Zarya. What happens is if you take off angles that cut off your sight, you don't really get forced out easily. You're just not really willing to stay on them very long if they cut off your sight to your other tank who you might like as a bubble source. So that shouldn't really happen. Probably need a VOD review. Probably need a VOD review, to be perfectly honest, because I doubt the issue is what you think the issue is based on what I'm seeing here, truth be told. So send me a VOD or, we'll try to figure something else out, but that I don't think you're identifying the problem correctly would be my answer. Okay. If other people have questions, you can go ahead and throw them up in chat now. If you're enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. I do greatly appreciate that. Quick wrap up here. Don't want to cite your healers. If you have a Lucio, it's his fault. Yes, Blah hates Lucio. Blah hates Lucio. Clearly, I need to do some more Lucio content to level up the quality of Lucios out there so Blah can be less unhappy. Clearly, that's the solution. No, I think that's going to do it. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.